analysis of communications, and also to give you a little bit of insight into what people are looking for when it comes to their communications options. You can see what webinars are coming up by visiting vertical.com and navigating to the Vertical Presents link on the main page. This month's webinar is on discovering the value of Cloud PBX for your customers. This is a special webinar just for Verticals dealers, and is presented by Vertical's VP of Marketing and Product, Kevin Butler. During the webinar, please mute yourself for the entirety of the session. And if you have a question during the webinar, you can enter it in using the chat function. We'll get to all of those questions at the very end of the webinar. And at the end of the webinar, Kevin will answer everything directly. You can also email us at webinar@vertical.com. You can reach out to David or Kim at any point via email or call them, and we're always here to help you out. Today's webinar will be recorded, and we'll send you a link to the recording tomorrow so you can review the sections that you were curious or want to learn more about, and you can also share the webinar with any of your coworkers or colleagues. You can also always access it by visiting our Vertical Presents homepage. So just one more reminder to stay on mute the entire time, and before we get started, I'll pass it over to David Brooks.
Thanks, Rebecca, and depending on where you are, good morning or good afternoon. I'm David Brooks. I know many of you out there that are on this call. I'm Vertical's VP of Partner Sales, and thank you very much for joining us. And Rebecca, thank you for getting this webinar organized and kicked off for us. Over the last few weeks and months, Kim McDonald and I have spoken to many of you about Vertical's iPECS Cloud solution. For those of you who have already become an iPECS Cloud dealer, thank you very much. For those of you who still may be deciding if a cloud solution is best for you and or your customers, we have Kevin Butler joining us today. As Rebecca just said, Kevin is Vertical's VP of Marketing and Products, and as the executive of both organizations, he is Vertical's and as a matter of fact, one of the country's or the industry's leading people, most qualified and respected in the cloud space. Every time I listen to Kevin speak, I always learn a lot, and I'm sure I will, and you will today. So Kevin, thank you for leading this webinar, and now it's all yours. We'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everyone spending a little bit of time talking with us here today. I'm going to get right into it and talk about our topic here today. We're going to spend a little time on a few different things. First, we're going to talk about the market move to the cloud and talk about what we see out there and why you should be worried about the cloud. You've had a successful business in the past. Why should you be thinking now about changing to the cloud? We'll be spending time talking about that. We'll then be talking about how to identify the right cloud fit for your customers, which customers it makes sense for, what things to be looking for, what things really mean that cloud's going to be working best for them. And then we'll talk about how to select the best cloud partner out there in the marketplace. After we've done that, we'll talk a little bit about some tips that we've seen in implementing cloud UC solutions so that you can be ahead of the game. And then we'll finally finish up by talking about iPECS Cloud, which we think really will fit your needs as the best cloud partnership to be able to deliver to your customers. So that's a lot of content to cover. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about the market move to the cloud. Now, I've been talking with a number of people in your space who've told me, yeah, I've been able to for years just to continue selling the same premise-based products, and my market's been good, but in the last couple of years, it's really changed. And we see that at Vertical as well. We've certainly seen a major shift, and the industry numbers really reflect that as well. Grandview Research has done some work on this, and it's showing that over the last few years, since 2014, we've seen the trend of rising hosted spend, and that the on-premise spend is flattening out. They are taking that trend and predicting it forward over the next 5 years and really expect it to continue to grow dramatically. Even worse numbers come to us when we look at what Gartner sees, which is Gartner has evaluated the major areas that we're all spending our time in, telephony services, UC services, conferencing. And the really scary part about these numbers from Gartner is not just, well, cloud's growing. It's the premise numbers are actually dropping. They are going negative at this point. And we're seeing that there is a real decline in premise sales. So this is the thing that we all have to be prepared to deal with. This is what we need to be looking at, because we want to continue to all serve our customers well, to make money, and to continue to have a successful business. We need to be aware of these kind of trends. So the good news is the cloud opportunity here really is huge. There's a lot to be done here. If you look at this survey also from Gartner, which is showing growth in the industry in various market segments, the really exciting one for us here is this big bubble in cloud-based telephony and messaging. There's a lot of opportunity there. There's a big, big heaping helping of business opportunity. And that's what we want to help everybody on this call be able to get into and be able to work with. So is this about replacing all your business? No, but there are places where it makes a lot of sense. So one of the things that we want to talk about is trying to identify the right cloud fit. What do cloud customers look like, and where should you be focusing on saying, oh, this makes sense to start pushing these customers in the cloud? And we've sort of divided this up into what makes a cloud customer versus a premise customer. One and first and foremost is when they start asking about it. And that's why we're talking about this, so that you've got the answer when they start asking. You have a positive answer to be able to deliver to them. But a couple of specific things are, cloud customers generally are focused on operational expenditures. They are more willing to put money into the OPEX side of their budget, and they really don't want to have any big CapEx bubbles on their spreadsheets. So that's one of those things that makes perfect sense for cloud, because obviously it is an operational expense. These are the people who may in the past have been much more interested in financing rather than buying outright, looking at leases on their equipment and such. Cloud offers another opportunity there. There are also companies that are really interested in technology. They're interested in flexibility and scalability, and they're interested in doing more with fewer IT resources. They may be companies that are looking at remote working, and they're looking at multi-location. As opposed to the premise customer, the ones we've been used to working with, people who want full control of their system. They want just a stable product that does what it does, and they don't need to worry about constantly changing and upgrading. There's somebody who may be interested in data ownership and worried about where their data resides and where all of their information, whether it be call recordings or logs, and where that information is. They may also be somebody who is got a need for independence from internet availability. Maybe they're in a very rural location. Maybe they have a location where the service is unreliable or spotty. And that's still a large portion of the United States. And then maybe somebody who's just worried about, hey, maybe I can maintain my existing investment and I don't want to have to spend a lot of new money because I have a lot of this existing investment here. We'll talk about how we've got some options for that last premise user on cloud as well, but we'll come back to that. So let's dive into these a little bit. First, talking about technology transformation. I already talked about OPEX versus CapEx, so let's start with technology transformation. One of the real advantages of cloud is you're able to have what we call a continuous transformation. What that means is that feature releases can happen constantly. And most importantly, for everybody here on this call, feature releases don't mean that there's a bunch of pain and suffering of having to run the upgrade, on the customer site. Did it work? Is there a reboot? Will the hardware support it? All those things that can cause lots of issues. None of that has to happen. Instead, they're installed in the cloud servers in a data center transparently in the background with zero downtime, and the customer just has access to the leading new features all the time. That's very, very powerful. Now, most customers would say that's a great thing. People who are interested in being on the technological edge, who want all the new features, who want new capabilities. But there are quite a few customers who are like, look, I've got what I need. That's what I bought from you. Please don't give me new capabilities where I have to go relearn a UC user interface, or all of a sudden how my phone works changes, or there's new capabilities that I'm getting notifications about, and I don't really care. Those kind of customers still need to be on the cloud side, on the premise side, but the cloud side really gives you an opportunity to deliver on that promise that in the UC space we've been doing for quite a while of, oh, always stay on top of, always be on the leading edge. And now you can do it with no pain to the customer. And more importantly, no middle of the night upgrades for you. You can get more sleep. That's what I'm saying. So another one that we need to look at is customers who are really interested in flexibility and scalability. If you have customers who are in a real growth stage and they're the ones who are calling you and saying, I need to add 10 more users every month, love those customers. But we need to enable them to be able to do that more easily. We don't want to have to add hardware or be able to install licenses, much less have to go on site. We don't have to want to enable new capabilities. Cloud makes this very easy because it's just a matter of, logging onto a web console and making a couple clicks, and all of a sudden new users can be added. This can also be the case of add-on features and capabilities. Somebody wants to add contact center or conferencing or some other capability. Very, very simple change. You don't have the need to add or provide an add-on server or provide a whole new capability that requires network reconfiguration. It's just a simple process. So those customers who are greatly increasing on a regular basis the number of users, or those customers who may be worried about downturns as well, this can be a powerful piece of the puzzle. One of those things to look at for customers. One of those things that I will call out, though, is you need to be sure of the vendor that you're working with. Some vendors tend to lock customers in with contract requirements that say, oh, hey, you're stuck here. You have to keep the same number of users for X number of years. So that can be a concern here when talking about flexibility and scalability that you should be looking at. Another area to really call out is for customers who are looking at a limited set of IT resources. IT is always one of those things that has more needs than it has bodies to fill. And whether you're doing managed services for the customer, they've got in-house people, or it's some combination, this is an eternal problem that cloud can help with. So if you've got people who need new projects to run forward, but their IT team feels overwhelmed, cloud can be a compelling offering here because it eliminates a lot of the effort. There's less maintenance effort. There's not the monitoring, the software patching, the continuous testing, those midnight upgrades I was talking about earlier. If you have a disaster planning strategy and you have failover capabilities, there's even more of that effort to involve to make sure that that's up and running, to test regularly, all those kind of things. Max can be simplified in this case. And so the IT team can spend more time focusing on new projects. If that's you as part of a managed services program or outsourced IT, now you can focus on new lucrative projects that can really transform your customer's business rather than the day-to-day scout work. Because most of that is done in the cloud data center, and you no longer have to worry about it. And you can find that you can offer the moves, adds, and changes much more simply in this environment. Thanks to the cloud tool set, it's very easy to get to the client's admin portal. There's no, oh, how do I remote into this customer? And how, do I have a VPN here? Am I using some tool set to get on? All those kind of pieces are simplified in this case. Another key area where you might be looking for cloud customers, if you have customers who are talking about remote working and moving to a remote working environment. Remote working has always been kind of hard because you have to connect whatever the customer's local network is to whatever their home network is, and that can be difficult. In cloud, it's much simpler. We'll talk about why in just a moment, but the first thing to understand is why this is a really important topic to talk about. And that's because remote working is becoming a huge trend out there in the marketplace. It's something where you're seeing some great advantages for businesses. Remote workers tend to work more. They tend to be more willing to join a company that has remote work policies. So people who are looking for the personnel and having a hard time hiring, this can be a real advantage. People are looking to make sure they keep their staff, or also see that they can retain them more easily. They can see real reduction in costs. Dell computers here save $12 million annually in real estate costs. And Vertical has seen this as well. We have moved many of our people at home and closed a number of our offices across the country, and we've seen several $1 million in revenue annually that we have been able to save and use in a more productive fashion rather than just spending the time on a real estate office. We've moved those people home, and they've been able to do the job effectively. So there's real advantages to this, but the key thing here is that cloud makes remote working much more simple. And really, here's the reason. Every single cloud worker is a remote worker. They're all remote. Nobody's sitting in a cloud provider's data center right next to the racks going, okay, I'm on the phone here, right? They're all remote to where the service is actually offered. So cloud providers, including Vertical, have to think every day about making sure remote works. We need to make sure it's a simple concept to deploy. We need to be thinking about all the firewalls and routers and other impediments and how to make it easy to bypass them. We need to make sure and think about all those pieces. And the flip side of it is premise, as we all know, it's harder to do remote. We have to think about how to get through the premise firewall, the customer's main location. We have to think about how to deal with home firewalls. We have to think about things like quality of service. There may be additional hardware or software or licensing involved. It can be a pain. With cloud, it's just a basic license that you already get, and automatically that person can be a remote worker. It's not hard at all. So remote work is the last of the items that we'll talk about as far as identifying that fit. But these are the kind of things that you want to look at to see what kind of customer you should be looking at. OpEx spend, technology, flexibility, scalability, fewer IT resources, remote working, and multi-location. And remember, not every customer is going to be there. There's going to be continued value in the premise products that you've been selling for a long time to come. And Vertical continues to sell thousands of our premise products and doesn't see a change in that anytime soon. But we have to realize that more and more encroaching on the market, cloud is where the growth in our marketplace is. And so we all want to engage with that. So great, we know how to identify the customer for cloud. We understand why we want to do cloud. Well, let's talk about choosing the right partner. And I'm going to try and give you some really reasonable, unbiased advice here. Obviously, we've got a dog in this hunt because we want to be that partner. But I'm going to try and tell you the things to look for here first. And then I'll talk to you about how we fulfill those. So the first key to having a successful cloud partnership is somebody who makes it easy for you to serve your customers. One of those things that we think is very important, we've spent a lot of time on, is existing phone compatibility. That phone is still going to be the piece of hardware that the customer has. One of those things that can be a big impediment is, oh, we've got to go in and replace all those phones. But what if you didn't have to do that? So that's one of those things that can really mean the cloud partnership's important. Another one to look for is existing relationships where you understand what it is to do business and you understand working with a company already. And these lead to the final sort of piece of this, which is a minimal disruption in the relationship for the customer. They don't have to pull out all their phones necessarily. They don't have to learn new people to work with, a new vendor. They still continue to stay with you, which is what you wanted. And you are able to stay with the same people you know on the side of the cloud partner you're going to be working. You also want a vendor that sees a value of you, the VAR. To be honest, we've seen out there in the marketplace that a lot of the cloud providers in the UCaaS space really just want your customers. They're looking for you to provide their customers, and then they're going to pay you a commission on that, and that's pretty much all there is to it. You want somebody who's looking for you to be part of the solution, that you're providing the value that you have as an organization. Your technical team, your experience, your project management, we'll talk about all of this, but that's what you should be looking for, is somebody who values all of that. And you should also be looking for something that shows the customer that your past choices, the decisions you helped them make on picking previous solutions, is still valuable, that there's value in what they bought before, that they're not just going to have to throw it all away, that that investment that you helped them make continues to be of value. And then there are, of course, the technical considerations. You want to look for something that's extremely easy to deploy because you don't want to have to make yourselves work too hard, do you? You want a great feature list, something that's covering all the customer's key needs. And you want to be able to have your access to the customer management console so that you can get in and manage your customers, to do moves, adds, and changes for them, to fix problems when they need help. You want all of that so that you can continue to show value and that you can be in there offering service to the customer and owning that relationship, and not just depending upon the cloud partner to do it, so that you can continue to have that value. So these are the things that you really want to focus on, from our opinion, to pick that right partner. And we happen to think that we offer all of those. As we go on, we'll talk through some of that. But we think Vertical meets all of these criteria. It's the way we've established our program. So understanding that, how can you run a successful cloud deployment? Well, you're a very important part of this, because one of the things that people seem to misunderstand about cloud is they think of cloud like something like Netflix, right? So Netflix, I go online, I sign up, I put my credit card in, and then I just start using it, and that's all it takes. Well, as we all know, unified communications is a lot more complicated than that. There's a lot more going on. There's the inbound workflow, there's the applications, there's the training. There is real parts to it. It's not something that you can just say, hey, look, sign up online, put in your credit card, we'll ship you the phones and forget about it. It's not just a matter of downloading an app. It's not what UC is like. What UC is closer to, actually, interestingly, is Salesforce. Sure, you can sign up for Salesforce and put in your credit card and just get going. But reality is, nobody actually buys it that way. Salesforce themselves doesn't encourage that. If you try and buy Salesforce, which is, the preeminent cloud application out there for businesses, if you try and buy it, it's going to look like this. There's going to be a launch with a kickoff meeting, and they're going to figure out and do project planning and milestones. There's going to be discovery and design and build. Doesn't this all sound familiar? Doesn't this sound like what we do when we're installing a UC system? It's exactly the same kind of stuff. And in fact, Salesforce doesn't do this alone. They do it with partners. If you go and buy Salesforce, they're immediately going to bring in an implementation partner to do all of this. And realistically, that's the way UC should be, because the secret to successful UC for customers is you. You can provide site surveys to make sure that we understand everything that's going on. You know the customer and what their needs are. You provide the design support to figure out how this should be set up and configured and really work for the customer successfully. You provide the on-site training. You are the ones who are there, can help out with the network and make sure that there are no issues. You can be the one that helps to deploy all the phones. You can be there for the cut to solve the problems and be that face in front of them. You provide the customer peace of mind that this is all going to go well. The same stuff that you've always done. You're what's going to make this a successful cut. And that is the key thing here to understand, is you've got a huge piece of this. We don't expect you to just say, oh, here's a customer, let us know how it went, and send me a check. We expect you to be involved to sell additional services, because that's the value proposition that you've been doing for years, and the secret sauce of why we're excited to get involved with cloud with our dealer channel. So let's help out with a couple of things that we have understood to make it a successful deployment. First, get a head start on everything. One of the great things about cloud is you don't have to roll out the whole system. You don't have to change over the wiring. Even if they already had IP phones, you can plug in more IP phones, just point them to a different location. So you can install all the phones ahead of time. And that means the customer can go call in and check all the inbound routing and make sure that that's working. They can test using the phone and make sure the call quality works, and call each other and make sure that all works, which means you can identify problems with their network ahead of time and solve those problems and fix them. And this is part of the value proposition you're bringing. You can then do training ahead of time rather than having to do it, right on the day of cut or right before. You can train them and let the end users use their new phones and touch and feel their new UC applications so that they understand how it works. You can work with their IT department, or maybe you're their IT department, as we've already mentioned, and make sure that QoS is actually working by doing a quick packet capture once you've got the phone set up, and say, yeah, okay, all the way here at the edge, the phones are still doing good QoS, because that's one of those absolute keys to success. You can do all of this ahead of time, and if you learn one thing about making cloud successful, it's use the advantage of being able to do all this stuff before the cut. The cut should be a non-event. It should be where the biggest thing you're worried about is, did the phone numbers port over correctly? That should be all you have to worry about, because you've done on the day of cut. But that was one of those things that we had to wait till the last minute, because that door phone was wired with the old system, and we had to wire it over to the new location. Basically, your goal is to make the cut day boring, not full of panic and stress, as we've all probably been at that cut before, where the wiring doesn't work, or there's an issue with the routing, or we just tested the phone numbers and they're not going to the right place. All of that can be done. And that's one of the advantages with cloud, is you can do all of that ahead of time and make this a non-event. Another key thing we see out there is that quality project management is critical. Now, this isn't really new. On-premise solutions, I'm sure you're saying to me, Kevin, that's always been true. Project management is always there. Well, right, and if you've got this down, you're going to be helpful. But the reality is, most organizations have big projects, whether they be IT or within their business, that have failed just in the last year because they don't have good project management. You can help them with this. Bring great project management, and you can make yourself the hero for your customers. Plan all those head start items we just talked about. Put them on the project plan and make sure they're there. Make sure there are no pitfalls because you've already laid it out. Put together a good project plan. We can help with this, and you're going to be incredibly successful for the customer. We found that this is really the difference between good cloud installs and bad cloud installs, is having great project management. And that's where you can do a lot. I would also mention that when we talk about UCaaS is what people, that's Unified Communications as a Service. Well, as a service means more than just renting a phone system. We're not just saying, hey, we're going to put the phone system in a data center somewhere and you can pay us every month for it. UCaaS is about ongoing service and support. And this is somewhere else where you all can come in. It's about your service and your interaction, your engagement. If you can continue to do this and engage with the customer just like you do today, that's going to make all the difference in the world in selling cloud. So we've seen why customers want to move to cloud. You've seen some of the things that will make that successful. Let's finish off by talking about iPECS Cloud, which is the product that we think makes a lot of sense for you to move to today. If you haven't heard about iPECS Cloud before, let me just tell you a little about it. And if you have, we'll renew. iPECS Cloud is powered by our verticals partner, Ericsson LG. Ericsson has been working with us for years. They provided a lot of our hardware where we provided the software. And iPECS Cloud is no different. We're working together with them on this. Vertical is hosting the cloud system in our data centers. We're providing support. We're providing all of the back end that I just talked about that you no longer have to worry about. That's all on Vertical. And what we're providing has built-in powerful UC applications. And it has really, really great enterprise-grade solutions originally iPECS is Ericsson LG's, enterprise level product that they build. It's a 1 million seat switch. So it really has that enterprise grade level capability, but we're offering it at SMB prices so we can go into your customers and give them that great edge. So at a really high level, it looks like this. There's a virtual stack of softwares with a session border controller fronting the iPECS call manager, which manages all the calls and does things like auto attendance and call routing and work groups, and a voicemail stack, and then application servers that do things like unified communications and contact center and all that. But the good news is you don't have to worry about any of that anymore. It's in our data center, and you can just get to it from any internet address by going to the web portal, and that's where you can set up and administer users. Then the phones can be anywhere that has a public internet connection. They can be at the customer's office, they can be at the customer's home. Remember, they're all remote workers, so you can put them everywhere. And it makes it very simple. The only thing that's really deployed out there are the phones or gateways. We'll talk more about those in just a minute. So we talked earlier about the customer, but the iPECS cloud customer lines up really well with the cloud customer. It's somebody who's interested in cloud for the OpEx reasons. Maybe they've just heard cloud is cool. They're looking for a cloud solution. They can be any scale. You can have somebody who has 2 users or 10,000. They can be multi-site. iPECS supports multi-site perfectly fine. So you might have a customer who has 5 or 10 locations. They can manage that as a single organization across those locations. Customers who are really security conscious are great because iPECS Cloud is extremely security conscious. It's built from the ground up. We talk about, I think you saw earlier on the slide, military grade security. We don't mean that theoretically. We mean that the Korean military uses iPECS. It really is the military grade security. We've talked about people who are looking more for OpEx spend rather than CapEx. But here's where we start to get into some interesting things with iPECS specifically. Vertical existing customers, so customers who have vertical solutions already, whether that be SBX or Summit or any of the other solutions out there, those have real particular value, and we'll see that here in just a moment. Also, customers who are looking for something that can be fitted, we call it tailored to them specifically. It can really be designed for them. That's where you come in and your great knowledge of the customers. And then customers who are very price aware. We feel we've aggressively priced this for the marketplace and have made this where you can make good money and still be a price leader in the marketplace. So that's really what an iPECS Cloud customer looks like. Some of the things that differentiate iPECS from other parts of the marketplace. One, there's a real focus on phone and PBX feature set. Most of the vendors out there in the cloud space really think about things starting with their UC app and with their software, and the phone is the voice path, and it has capabilities. But I'm sure you've probably sold against cloud this way before. They don't really have the deep phone features. They don't really have those years of capabilities. Well, iPECS does. iPECS has that deep phone feature set because it's coming from that premise world, because it's been made that way. We've worked to make sure that it really has that great feature set. We also have support for the vertical legacy hardware. We'll dig into that here in just a moment, but we've got the ability to not just support vertical legacy IP phones, but we can support vertical legacy digital phones as well. We have the ability to do all that with the deep phone features and the support for vertical handsets, and also offer really powerful UC clients as well. So you've got all those capabilities. We think it's a really great price point that we're at. And a key thing that I'll point out is right? Our expert dealer network with design, service, training, and installation, all those things we talked about before that will make this successful delivery. You're part of the secret here. So I mentioned legacy handsets. So we can support the 9800 series IP phones. We can support all of those on this. We have the UC soft phone capability as well, both mobile and desktop. It's pretty standard. We can even support people's third-party IP phones. So if you're bringing somebody over from another product, we could look at supporting their legacy IP phones as well. the really exciting part is that legacy vertical digital handsets can be supported. You have customers with Edge 700 handsets, SPX handsets, even some of the older XDS and STS handsets. We can support that all through a digital gateway that you replace the old premise PBX with. The gateway just basically converts the signaling from digital to IP, and now those digital phones can stay on the desktop and not have to change, and you manage it all in the cloud. So this is a great way to be, take advantage of all of your install base and move them to the cloud with no ability for the competitor to really get in the door at all, because the competitor is talking to them about how, the time and effort and money to replace all those phones, and how is that going to work? Where you can say, well, the phones can stay, and you can continue using what you've got. We're just going to put in a gateway to enable that, and you're still managing it in the cloud, and you get all those advantages we talked about before. You could even take one of these gateways and put it at a branch office, put it at another location, and to be able to support phones there across multiple locations. So this is really what we think is one of the great secret sauces, because you all have the install bases of all these vertical customers out there, and now we can give you the ability to support all of their existing phones and be able to transition them. And maybe in the end, they decide they really do want to move to something new. But in the early part of the sales process, you're able to block out competitors by saying, yeah, sure, we can reuse your phones. And isn't that a great opportunity? So I mentioned UC. We do have UC capabilities with what we call the premium bundle. You've got a mobile client and a desktop client. Built into it so you can chat back and forth. It also supports file and screen sharing. It can support video calling from UC client to UC client, and then it can support desktop control of the desk phone as well. So we're not going to get deep into, I could spend, an hour just on the UC client and other features here, but I want to make sure you know at a high level what's available here. We're able to do all the things that you're looking for in a UC application. We have the ability to provide a robust contact center capability. When we released the 3.0 version of cloud earlier this year, or actually last year now, isn't it? It's 2020. When we released it last year, we had more advanced contact center capabilities. So you really have the robust ability to support a powerful contact center, and then integrate with various CRM packages out of the box. You can add that on as a capability for people who already have a Salesforce, NetSuite, Microsoft, a lot of other products out there. I just noticed we're missing a comma on that slide. We need to fix that. We have some add-on application capabilities built into the system. There's ad hoc conferencing and the ability to just add people to a call. This can actually be a real differentiator for other cloud products. Many cloud products just use SIP conferencing so that you can just have a three-party conference call. The ad hoc conferencing on iPECS Cloud allows you to have up to 128 parties in an ad hoc conference call. I think continually adding those people in might be a little difficult. You might not want to go there. But then for that, we have a built-in audio conference bridge, which can also keep that same number of parties. If you want to go up, there's an add-on capability for web collaboration, so people can have the ability to do video and web conferencing, and that can be an add-on capability as well. Call recording is also supported. You can have on-demand or automatic call recording, and there's some additional cost here going on, mostly around storage, but there is the ability to support this. Other things, you can add additional phone numbers. We can do toll-free numbers. You no longer have to worry about any of the trunking side of this because that's built into the package. But you do have to worry about porting the phone numbers, and we'll help you with that. You can do things like standalone voicemail boxes, additional auto attendants if they want to build out a really complex structure. We mentioned the CRM desktop integration and the contact center, and we can do web fax as well. So there's a lot of different capabilities here that we can mix and match. You'll learn all about this if you're interested in onboarding in our training sessions that we have. We have a prepackaged training on iPECS Cloud that you can learn all about it. And This is not close to it. This is, you know, me doing the sales pitch here, let's be honest. And then a key portion of this, there's a web portal that you have access to so that you can set up, configure your customers if you want. You can support them ongoing. You can deploy them and use this to be able to control. Now, the customer could use it as well if you want to push that to them, if they have preference of being able to get into the admin. But this gives you the ability to really continue that relationship of owning the customer and owning that service portion as much as you want. We support all of this with a number of resources. I mentioned the training earlier. We have support that you can call, as well as the iPECS knowledge base online, where you could go and find out all the details of how to do this. Once you go through the training, you know, there's always that, well, I don't remember this specifically. Do I want to go through and look at all the hours of video recording of that training? How about I just go to the knowledge base instead? So a lot of stuff there, but we think all of this comes together to give you a compelling cloud solution. As more and more of your customers are asking for cloud, you can get a competitive advantage by coming in there and saying, yes, not only can we use cloud, but that decision that I had you made previously on previous products, you can continue using the phones on. And that will, in many times, lock out the other cloud competitors. You'll have the ability to work with a vendor you know, and a vendor who really is concerned about using your capabilities, who understands the value of the vendor, who understands what you bring to the table. And we want to use and take advantage of that. And we understand that this is a partnership where you own the customer and we're providing the product, just as we always have. So if that's exciting to you, the next steps are really to contact Kim or contact David, and they can get you started with all the details. David, do you want to spend a moment talking about what would go on there?
Yeah, there's a few things that we can that Kim and I can review with you, but what we need is what we want to provide you with a NFR system. So we will provide 2 free seats for you. You can use those seats as an in-house system, or you can use it as a demo system, or both. Before that, we need to have you do some training. So there's 2 3-hour webinars that are on our BConnect site. By calling Kim or me, we'll get you access to that so you can do those webinars. And with those 2 steps, plus just giving us a little bit of information, we should be good to go. And we really look forward to working with you. We've, again, thank you for those that have signed up, and we hope we get a lot more in the future. But please don't hesitate to call Kim or me, you know, starting tomorrow, and we can get into a lot more detail with you. But thank you for joining us, Kevin. I'll turn it back to you. Thank you for going over that. As always, I did learn a lot, and I'm not sure if there's any other questions that you might want to we might want to answer. If there is, you could enter the questions online there.
Yeah, so the chat box is right there. I don't see where anyone's put any questions in yet, but certainly if you have any questions about everything, as Rebecca mentioned, we'll have a copy of this recording so you can listen to it again, go over all the information. I know I've thrown a lot at you here in 45 minutes. There's a question about asking to show the UC. We're not set up today to in this session to do a demo. That's certainly something that if you contact Kim or contact David, we can set up a one-on-one demo for you so you can see the product in more detail. But we just wanted to hit this at a high level today. We absolutely would love to show you the product and go into more detail. Happy to do that, but we're not. This whole setup wasn't meant to do that here today. So there's a question about the desktop interface. Once again, I think we can get set up to do a demo for you. I had one quick screenshot here that shows the iPECS UC demo or iPECS UC application over here, where you can see a listing of the favorites and the ability to, you know, change my presence, control if I'm using voice or video, what my extension is. You know, there's a pretty standard feature set here. I think it's, having used a lot of different UC products, I think it is very comparable, and you'll find it very similar But we can really get into showing that to you more if you're interested in doing a follow-on demo. I think is probably the way to go at that. So if you're interested, once again, contact Kim and David, and they can really dig in and do a demo for you of the product capabilities. So there's a question about call recording. As I mentioned before, call recording is an option. It is built into the product. There is some additional cost associated with it, depending upon what you want to do. But there is absolutely the ability to have that for either, on demand or system-wide call recording. So there's a question about, is it close to Viewpoint? Is it going to Viewpoint? It's not going to go in the Viewpoint direction. And part of that is just the industry, right? So Viewpoint is great. Huge fan, but the industry has really moved to, honestly, what I think of as a different form factor, as a consensus kind of thing. And so iPECS has really gone in that sort of same direction as everybody else, to be honest. It's not going to be going to the sort of full screen fit clients with drag and drop capabilities that you saw in Viewpoint. We're just not going to, we're not going to go there. I don't want to promise something you're never going to see. So, but it's very much, the sort of, it's a bar on one side of the screen that has those capabilities. That's what it's closer to. So great questions. Anyone got anything else? So the question is, will there be sales leads? Certainly something that we can work with you on. Everybody's always looking at ways to generate business. So we're looking at ways that we can generate business for you, and that's something that we can put together. Absolutely. We're working more and more on the vertical side, on the digital marketing piece of bringing in leads. We generally get leads. Our biggest lead area that we get on our website is our legacy sort of Combal and Vidavi product leads. So that's probably where that is. That's those kind of things would come here and go to our dealers who are in the program. Absolutely. So question about so there is network assessment capabilities that are in the product. There's the ability to do not just QoS testing, but quality assessment of every single call. Shows up in several of the slides that I talked about earlier.
Well, if that's it, Kevin, once again, thank you. Thank you for all of you who joined. As we've said a couple times, it has been recorded. We'll make it available to you, and please don't hesitate to call either Kim or me, and have a good rest of the week. Thanks very much.